and we'll make sure TV. So welcome to the first part of the WinDriver 16.2.0 launch, version 16.2.0. Among other features I will describe shortly, we have two significant features. The first one is the Driver Wizard generated test certificate, which I explain now in this webinar. And tomorrow we have another webinar regarding predefined actions. This webinar is for Windows user only, as it is related to Windows or Microsoft Windows mechanism of digital signature and certificates. And here I will explain everything about it. If you have further questions after the webinar, feel free to send me an email here, daniel@django.com, and we will gladly further assist. So what are we going to see in the next 45 minutes? We will go through maybe the most significant features and enhancements of the latest version, which is available on our website. We will have an overview of a test certificate, what it is, the digital signature mechanism, what WinDriver offers when it comes to INF tools. It saves the Windows driver developer a lot of time and effort with generating automatically INFs, and now even making the whole development process easier without the need to disable the digital signature enforcement every time the computer restarts. We will go through the old and new flow. There are a few options and additional notes regarding distribution and more. So let's start. So when talking about the top feature of 16.2.0, we have the automatically signed with the test certificate kernel plugins to avoid manually disabling digital signature enforcement constantly during development. I will show you in a few moments exactly what it does to the flow. It's supposed to make the whole development process much easier and smooth. On Thursday, we will have a webinar about PDA, predefined actions, which is a huge step toward a no-code user experience. That means that you can assign actions, predefined actions on the GUI, the application of WinDriver, and then get it generated, the flow generated in a code. It is very interesting and very game-changing feature, and I highly recommend you to sign up to Thursday's webinar as well. Other two features or enhancements are regarding the support for Windows 10 builds prior to build 19.041. We got a few tickets regarding this issue. People have struggled with installing INFs or installing WinDriver on Windows 10 builds prior to build 19.041. If you encountered issues before, 16.2.0 comes with a fix. All you have to do is mark this, is to check this box when generating an INF on the wizard, and you will be able to install the specific INF on this build, on the particular build that is prior to build 19.041. And this is true to the distributions as well. If you know that you will distribute to a Windows 10 build prior to build 19.041, you should check this box. If not, it is recommended to uncheck this box because it will save time and resources for WinDriver and your driver when implemented and running on a distributed computer. Another significant enhancement or fix is the kernel security issue related to escalated privileges. We sent a newsletter today regarding this issue. We have a CVE number. Generally, these vulnerabilities are related to escalated privileges. As I said, these vulnerabilities can be taken advantage of only if a user already penetrated your user or a single user, then it can escalate its privileges to admin. If you have more questions, send me an email regarding it. We also sent a newsletter, and we can provide more information. These vulnerabilities are fixed on 16.2.0. So if you install the most recent version, you are safe. You will not be affected by these vulnerabilities. And you can find more info in this address where you can see the release notes, the full release notes. And that's it for now. As I said, we highly recommend upgrading to the latest version, as these are not affecting the latest version. So we're going to discuss a lot of things that you as a WinDriver user will not necessarily be involved with, but I will explain the mechanism behind it. So we'll go through the flow and the bottom line, and by the end of the presentation, I will present the best practice we recommend. But in the bottom line, all you have to do is to check and uncheck boxes. But now we will do a deep dive about in this mechanism of a digital signature, INFs, test certificates, etc., in order to better explain how things go. So let's start with an overview, and we will dig deeper later. If I haven't said it before, if you have any question, write it on chat, and I will look at it and answer. So so let's see the overview, or what are we trying to solve here. If you're familiar with this screen for disabling the driver signature enforcement, this is exactly the place for you. So what happens today, or in versions prior to 16.2.0, is that you installed WinDriver and then run it and generated in the device INF, generated the driver code, build your app, and then you have to restart your computer in order to disable the digital signature enforcement. I will go through every part of it soon, but this is just a quick overview if you are already familiar with the process. And then if you had a crash or a hang, or you just end your day and reset the computer, you will have to restart the computer again in order to install the device INF, which is not digitally signed yet, because it is new, it is still in development. So you haven't sent it to a digital signature by Microsoft or Django, and you have to disable the digital signature enforcement. Okay, this requires a lot of, it's very time consuming. It takes a lot of effort and patience, because every time you have a crash, which is pretty common when talking about developing in a kernel mode, you always have to restart the computer, and it can be very draining and exhausting. So our guys here at WinDriver thought this through and changed the mechanism. There is a new process. In the new process, you install WinDriver and create a test certificate. I will go through what a test certificate is quite soon. Enabling the test sign mode, which requires a restart during the installation, but only once. Once you enter the test sign mode, which again, I will explain what it is shortly, you are able to run a WinDriver, generate the INF, generate the driver code, build your app, and then even in case of crash or hang, you won't need to reboot or restart the computer. Your computer will stay in a test sign mode, and with the test certificate generated by WinDriver, you won't need to disable the digital signature enforcement. Okay, so the process now includes a certificate and a test sign mode, so you won't need to disable the digital signature each time you reboot the computer or it crashes. So let's get back to point 0 and talk about what are you talking about here? The Microsoft Digital Signature, what it is, what is the mechanism? Let's have a quick overview. So Microsoft provide us with an operating system that has a lot of defenses. They are defending essentially the customers, the users, and protecting them from malicious software, from malware. And we all know that the kernel is a very sensitive layer of the computer. If you gain access to this layer, you can create crash, hangs, and attack the system on a very deep level and even cause damage to the hardware. So digital signature is an authentication of the digital information, and it confirms that the source, the originator of the driver, in our case, is authentic. Is not here to do harm, and is valid. It is valid to install the product or the software developed by it. So it is good for authenticity, integrity. It proves that the origin of the signed content, and essentially it is a good thing because it makes sure, and also your clients know that you are a verified developer of drivers and you are authorized by Microsoft. So this is in general the need, the requirement we need to fill is to be approved and by a digital signature. Now, digital signature is a process that is outside of the driver development. It happens after the driver is developed. And when you develop the driver, and the driver hasn't been signed yet because you haven't finished it, Windows won't let you install the units in the driver because it is not digitally signed. As we saw, what needs to be done is to disable the digital signature enforcement. If you are probably familiar with this screen, rebooting, disable the digital signature enforcement, and then you will have this pop-up message that say Windows cannot verify the publisher of this driver software, and it asks your confirmation whether to install or not install this particular driver, and you'll probably clicked on install this driver because you developed it. Now, disabling the digital signature enforcement does not maintain from a reboot to reboot. Every time the computer crash, hang, being restarted, turned off and turned on, you needed to disable it again with the same sequence, which again is very time consuming and exhausting. So the problem was that the newly generated driver does not have an authorized digital signature. Therefore, Windows blocked it. And in order to install it, the digital signature enforcement should be disabled, which requires a reboot. And the signature of any driver is derived from a certificate installed in Windows Certificate Store. I will explain what it is in a few slides. But this is the frame of the work, the whole authentication in front of Windows verification mechanism. This is just a screenshot of how to disable Windows Digital Signature Enforcement. You are probably familiar with it. Again, very time consuming. While we're talking about WinDriver's digital signature, I can say that we offer a digital signature service. Okay, WinDriver offers a digital signature service for WinDriver-based drivers only. That means that only WinDriver generated drivers are applicable to be signed by us. The signatures include both Microsoft and Django's signature, which is attestation signing, which is stronger than regular signature. But before you sign the driver, after you completed the development for distribution, let's go through the components of the validation of the driver. So the first component is the INF. INF is an information file. It's basically a text file that contains instruction and configuration settings used during the installation of drivers or applications, providing a structured format for describing device information and installation procedures. Okay, so you probably know that WinDriver's driver comes with two INFs at least, device INF and driver INF. Here we have a screenshot of the device INF. And in the device INF, you can find in an INF the device description, installation procedure, but to our point, we are talking about the signature, okay? The signature information is included in the INF. You can see the catalog file related, which I will get to soon. The driver version, you can see really a lot of information regarding the driver in a simple text file. So WinDriver has an INF, and your driver has an INF, and shortly we will go through why we need INFs using WinDriver. But this is an essential part of this feature or this mechanism, the text file. The authentication, as I said, is linked to a catalog file. If we look at the catalog file, okay, you can see it here. It includes a signature. You can see the signature, the signer information. In this case, it's WinDriver 16.2.0 development. In one tab, in the general tab, and in the security catalog tab, you can see the hash and the INF related to this catalog file. By the end of this webinar, you will understand how it works in a few moments. Each one of these tags are a different file. Okay, so in this case, the catalog, this specific catalog has 3 files related to it, or bound to it: the test and driver INF, the test and device INF, and the test and sys file. If you will generate a code in a project with WinDriver, in the Redis folder, you will find all the files. We will have an overview shortly. And this is a component that was new to me. It is new in the sequence or the flow of how things are going in the new version. This wasn't part of previous versions. The certification store. What is it? The certification store is a window in Windows is a repository where digital certificates are stored and managed. You can access it running certlm.msc in the run command line. You can see here that in the personal folder certificates, you have the WinDriver 16.2.0 point development certificate. This what allows us to generate INFs and cat files that has permissions to run in test mode. Okay, this is the component. You won't need to generate it by yourself. If you generate it during the installation process, we will go through it. But what you are seeing right now, the catalog file and the certificate store, is only a sneak peek to the mechanism. You won't need to create it or to handle it in any case. Just be familiar with it. So this is part of the mechanism. And this is an example of the WinDriver security certificate in the WinDriver folder. This is how it looks like. Okay, this is a new icon when talking about WinDriver version. And when you open the file, you can see here the certificate information. WinDriver certificate, you can install it. And we will see in another tool, WinDriver offers the WDREG, how you can generate one too, if you haven't installed it, automatically install it in the WinDriver installation process. This is another term that is related to this mechanism, the self-signed certificate. This is a tool by Microsoft, which allows us to create a certificate, a test certificate, based on an existing certificate with all the settings copied from the original certificate. Again, if you will install the certificate during WinDriver's installation, you won't need to create a self-signed certificate. WinDriver 16.2.0 allows unsigned driver generated from Driver Wizard to be installed and utilized on test mode without the need to reboot and disable a different mechanism. This is the whole point of the self-signed certificate. So when talking about the components of this mechanism that allows the running an INF, an unsigned INF, with the digital signature, with the test time mode on, without disabling the digital signature enforcement, we have the two INFs, which you probably are familiar with, the device and driver, the system file, and they are all bound or related to a cat file, okay, a catalog file that derives its permissions from a certificate that sits in the certificate store. Okay, so this is the general scheme of how things work. And as you saw, you can see in each catalog file which INFs and system file is how it is related, or which this file is it related to, and which certificate it relies on. And as long as you have this certificate on your store, you are good. You won't need to create other certificates in order to run on this particular computer. The last thing, or the last mode we will go through, is the test time mode. After you restart your computer when installing WinDriver and entering a test time mode, you will see this at the bottom right of your screen. Okay, this is the test mode. It allows users to install and test drivers that has not been digitally signed by a trusted certificate authority. So before you sign your driver and distribute it, you can test it on your computer in a test mode, and you can trust it because you developed it. You can run it. If you reboot the computer, it will boot in a test mode again. So you won't need to do anything with the BIOS or the boot sequence. And you can also enter this mode with this command. So we talked about the components, and now let's see how WinDriver serve this purpose or help us getting over this whole mechanism and to reach our goal. So why do we need INX at all when talking about WinDriver? WinDriver works with API. The whole idea is to save you the time and effort of developing in kernel mode. You, the developer, the user, from kernel mode. So you are doing everything from the user mode. We have an API that is connecting the user mode to the kernel mode, the high-level API and low-level API, and the access to the kernel module is via the driver INF. Another INF is required in order to access the hardware between the kernel module and the hardware. So this is why we need the INFs, and this is why they need to be authenticated. Because if an unauthorized, or let's say you have a malicious or an attacker trying to access your hardware on Windows, it will have to go through an INF and other types of verifications. So this is the importance of INFs when talking about WinDriver. The old communication with the kernel module cannot be done without the installation and authentication of both INFs. So it was pretty straightforward in the previous version for how to generate INF with the WinDriver. And now we have two options, and we will go through them right now. The first option is to generate an INF from the device selection window. What do I mean? We have the device selection window. You all know it, how to, when you're choosing a specific device when starting a new project, you can generate an INF file. Okay, this is before creating or saving the project. So before you have any code, this is maybe the first step, the first INF you can generate. You can automatically generate a test time catalog file for this device INF, which will allow you to run the INF without disabling the digital signature enforcement. Okay, so as I said, in order to run an unsigned INF, you need a test time catalog. So you need a catch file that will allow you to run the INF in test time mode and not need to disable the signature enforcement anytime. If you say generate the INF from this point, okay, from the device selection window, it will be bound to WinDriver 16.20. Okay, it will require the WinDriver 16.20 sys file INF and not the project's INF, because it is prior to generating any code. So it will not be related to your project, but it will be bound to WinDriver 16.20 sys file. The other option is to generate INFs during the code generation. This is maybe WinDriver's main purpose. You click on generate code and you have the whole code with all the parameters and actions and functions you entered on the wizard. So when you generate the code, as you know, you get two INFs, device and driver INF. You get a sys file, and from now on, you will get a catalog file, which is related to both of them, the three of them, sorry, the two INFs and the sys file, a step-signed certificate, okay, for distribution, and two scripts, one for installation and one for uninstall the certificate. To save you time, okay, and spare you the hassle of start going into the store and things works and things are not working. We got it covered, okay, with these two scripts, and it looks like that. Okay, so you generated code. This is from the wizard. You have a project now, and as you can see, you have two INFs, device driver, sys file. You have the security certificate, and install and uninstall the test certificate scripts. So when you distribute these this folder or your driver, you will be able to run it on test time mode on the distributed computer as well. Just make sure or note that these INFs are no longer related to WinDriver 16.20 sys INF, but sys file, sorry, but to the test end, to your project sys file. And you can see it in the security catalog. If you double click it, you will be able to see that this is bound to these three components. So after we discuss the mechanism, let's see the old and new flow. So in the old flow, as we all know, we created a project, we had our INFs, and we started to build our app. and then we encountered difficulties. We had a crash, we had a hang, we needed to restart the computer, and then to disable the digital signature enforcement. And every time we needed to change anything and to install the unsigned driver INF, we entered this vicious circle. And we needed to restart the computer, disable, and again, and again, and again. And it is very time consuming. Okay, and again, these screens in the new process, and now I will go over the two options for entering the sign mode. And this is the best practice I recommend. In the new process, you install WinDriver, and you create a test certificate and enable the test sign mode in the installation phase. Okay, in the first level, you restart the computer, and then you are free to test and develop your driver with the INF whenever you want, without the need to reboot every time and to spend precious time. This is how it looks like. Okay, when you are installing WinDriver, you have the option. These are automatically checked to create a test certificate and enable the test sign mode. Okay, if you click these two, you do not need to change anything later, not to create a test certificate or enable test sign mode. You click next, and you will need to reboot after the installation. Once that's done, you can check every item generated by WinDriver here, automatically generating test time catalog file, and you will be able to run these drivers without, again, changing anything on the computer settings. Now, if you uncheck these two boxes, okay, if these two boxes were unchecked during installation for any reason, you have another way to create a test time, to enable test time mode and create a test certificate. When you install WinDriver, and as I said, you haven't enabled the test time mode and created a test certificate, everything goes like in the first flow, but you can use the WD-Reg GUI or WD-Reg in order to enable the test time mode and create certificate. You will have to be with admin permissions, okay, in every part. Every change in the computer mode will require admin permissions, so you will have to open the WD-Reg with admin permissions, but you will be able to do this after installing WinDriver. Okay, so be able to run and test and build your app, and you won't need to restart it every time, only one time. Okay, and this is how it looks like. The WD-Reg tool, you probably know it. It's if you are not familiar with this, WD-Reg is for dynamically loading and unloading kernel modules. It is in our util folder. Very useful tool with a great front end, and now it got even better. So there is a new tab, it's called the test signing, and you can create a self-signed certificate. Okay, if you haven't created it in the installation part, you can do it here, and you can also remove it, the certificate. For any reason, you need to remove it. Other two options are enable and disable test signing mode. Okay, you can do it from here. Again, you will have to be an administrator, and it will require a reading. But once you've done that, you won't have any issues afterward running self-signed certificates INF in test signing. Let's talk about distribution. Okay, so in generally, once you distribute your driver, you would want to sign it. Okay, so first, your integrity in front of your clients and customers will be positive. They will have no issues. The user experience will be smooth. They won't encounter any issues or warnings when installing your driver. So when distributing your driver, it is very recommended to sign it. And again, we offer signature services. However, if you want to test your driver in a distributed computer and you haven't signed it yet, you can use a self-signed certificate. Okay, again, you have everything in your package, in your distribution package. The certificate, this is important, is computer or host specific, which means that you cannot take the certificate from your computer and just copy it to another computer. Use this script, okay, and use the generated certificate to avoid any issues. So in the Redis folder of the project, there are two scripts to install and uninstall, and you have the INFs and system files and catalog files. You have everything to create a smooth testing on a distributed computer. And it won't save you the signature, the digital signature, because you don't want your clients to be on test mode all the time. Okay, so you will need to eventually sign it. But if you want to test it on a distributed computer, you have everything we need for it. We have updated the documentation with the new features. So you can read more on chapter 15.2.1.3, testing machine distribution and package. After saying all that, and maybe it was a little overwhelming and a lot of details, there is a best practice, okay? What we recommend is to check or leave these boxes checked and do not unchecking them while installing WinDriver. Create a test certificate and enable test time mode for a smooth experience and without the need to disable the digital signature every time. If you want to test or develop, you can do it in your projects folder. Okay, you have the diag, the application tool, and the lib, and here you have also an INF and a catalog file. So utilize them to improve and develop your driver. You can again click on the catalog file and see which INF it is related to, and maybe it will be easier to debug and get more details about what is linked to where. And if you want to distribute, just go with the generated package. It works, and it will save you a lot of time and effort in front of your customer. I hope it was clear. This is it. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to send it on chat. And I will go through the first slide, and you have my email there. And if you have any question, feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to assist.